We'll begin satsang with a short meditation. So take a few seconds and just allow yourself to find a position that you won't have to move in. If those of you who are here can move up a little bit, why don't you just move forward? It'll make some empty space by the door. So when people come, they can just come up. Keep coming. A little closer. It's a day of oneness. Come closer. Yes, good. Wonderful. So take a few seconds and allow yourself to find a position that's stable enough you don't have to move for the next 7 or 8 minutes. And just make a commitment not to move. Because the mind goes where the body goes. And as the eyes close, allow the attention that's normally focused on the world outside. Allow that attention to shift to the world inside. Draw the awareness to your breath. Don't wait for the thoughts to stop or the sounds in the outer world to stop, but rather, amidst the mind of thoughts, amidst the world of sound, amidst the sensations, allow yourself to come into direct contact with your control over your attention. Use the power of your mind to pull that attention from the thoughts, from the sounds, to pull that awareness to your breath. As you hold the body still, hold the awareness still. Let it merge with your breath. We're not watching the breath. We're simply merging the awareness into the breath. Keep drawing that awareness to the breath. as it flows in and flows out. Until there's no break between the inhalation and the exhalation, but just a continuous cycle of breathing outer to inner, inner to outer, an unbroken cycle of breath and awareness. And as you inhale and exhale, allow that border where your body ends and the world begins. Allow that border to dissolve. There is no inner. There is no outer. There's just breathing. You can add a simple mantra with it. You can chant so on the inhalations and hum on the exhalations. So it means I am that. I am one with all that exists. I am the creator. I am the creation. So Gently bring the palms of the hands together and rub them gently against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Open your eyes and lower your hands. Welcome to satsang. We'll start as always with a question that's come in advance and then open it up to any questions that anyone here has. Spirituality is often associated with renunciation of all worldly affairs. Many people recognize the deep crisis the world is in and feel called to act and do good. Does engaging in good deeds and actions in any way prevent us from being spiritually fulfilled? So there's actually a lot of different questions in there. So we'll take them all. First of all, spirituality, when we think about it as a renunciation of worldly affairs, it's a renunciation of things that make us stuck. And this is a really important thing to understand. There is nothing in the world that is bad or wrong or unspiritual. So it's not that we renounce things because they are bad or they are wrong or they are unspiritual. And when we become spiritual, we say, no, I can't have that or do that because that's bad or wrong or unspiritual. It's not that. We renounce that which makes us stuck. And in a broad general sweep, so when you're making massive universal sort of spiritual laws or religious lineages or religious traditions, we make these sweeps that say, okay, what are the things that make us stuck? Well, typically, yearning for money makes a lot of people stuck. Keep wanting to have more and more money, more power, more fame, more acclaim, more success. And so on a spiritual life, they say, okay, so rather than being in a world that just perpetuates that sense of you versus others, only one guy at the top, instead of being in a world that perpetuates having more, you're going to renounce that. Again, not because it's bad, not because money itself or power itself or a job itself is somehow unspiritual, but because our mind can actually only be in one place at one time. Now, some of us may feel like our mind is in 1,000 places at once, but if we really watch it, you realize it actually is going from one to another, 1,000 places in very quick sequential order. But at one moment, your mind can only be in one place. And so either my mind is on grabbing, getting more, my mind is on an experience of lack, or my mind is on an experience of abundance. I cannot simultaneously be focused on the drive to have more, which comes from an awareness of lack, and also be living in an experience of abundance. And so in these broad, sweeping, spiritual lineages and traditions and paths, we say, okay, so that makes you stuck. Come to a life of renunciation. They say relationships, family, sex, all of that makes you stuck. Now, it's important to realize it's not the family itself, it's not the relationship itself, it's what happens in our mind. Because what the random guy who walks down the street does or says or wears isn't usually enough to negatively impact my sadhana. Like if I'm taking a walk and I'm doing my japa, or I'm walking mindfully, I'm praying to God, and there's some random guy on the street yelling, or somebody dressed in clothes that I think are too skimpy, or whatever it may be, it's not going to impact my mindfulness. But if that's my daughter who's walking out of the house dressed like that, or that's my husband or my child or my brother, whoever it may be, who's acting in a way, speaking in a way, doing something that isn't what I want, that's what pulls us out of our meditation. Now, it shouldn't. The highest peace is not stay away from me because I'm in peace, and if you come close, I'm going to lose it. Obviously, that's a very tenuous experience of peace, but it's what you see a lot. Don't talk to me because I'm really feeling peaceful right now. And if you come too close and you start talking, I'm going to lose it, so just stay away. Okay, that's a very tenuous experience of peace. It's not by any means the highest goal of where we're going. But because that's the experience that so many people live in, that very, very precarious peace, I'm in peace until and unless you do something that makes me angry. I'm in peace until and unless you say something that isn't what I want, and then I'm angry. Well, that's not the type of peace we're looking for. And so this is where the traditions say, okay, so we're just going to remove all of the challenges, work, money, job, relationships, family, sex, this, that, all the things that tend to create desires, fears, grabbing, aversion, pushing, all of that, so that you can focus spiritually. But other than for a very small, very, very small number, very small percentage of us for whom it's our dharma to actually have chosen a life of renunciation forever, there's no reason that you have to renounce the world to live a spiritual path. What is very helpful temporarily is to bring yourself into situations, ashrams, spiritual places, holy places, in which you can connect. As Pujya Swamiji says, recharge your batteries. You know, we do a lot of tree plantations. And in the beginning, when you plant a tree, you have to put this tree guard around it. Because the monkeys will come. They'll uproot it. They'll eat it. But that's only for a very short period of time. Once those roots get in the ground, once that tree becomes a tree, well, a whole family of monkeys can swing on its branches. It's not going to uproot the tree. So you don't need that tree guard around the tree forever. It's just in the beginning when it's new and it's young and it's tender. And so you think about renunciation with regard to your spiritual practice. Think about what you need to do to get yourself deeply spiritually connected. The things that are confusing it temporarily. Prune them. Don't think about it as pushing them away or renouncing them. Think about it as pruning. Like we prune our garden, the things that are growing unnecessarily, weeds and things that are overgrowing. You prune them back. So what is it that's unnecessary in my life, that's unnecessarily pulling my mind and my attention away from my mindfulness, away from doing my japa, away from my spiritual connection? Can I prune that? But by no means do you have to renounce. So that's the first piece of this question. And then in terms of being called to serve, as though somehow that were an antithesis of spirituality. Service. And the question said, at this time, the deep crisis the world is in. Well, yeah, we are in a deep crisis now. And we have scriptures that were written thousands of years ago, in different yugas entirely, that still say, serve. So it's not like we can say, oh, well, just, this Kali Yuga or just this, particular time, we all need to serve. The Gita says, serve. The scriptures remind us, serve. But how to serve? The dilemma comes in the way that most of us serve, which is I'm the doer. And so let's take for a moment this present crisis. And regardless of whether the present crisis may be the president of your particular country, may be the environmental crisis, may be our impending water crisis, may be terrorism, whatever for you the deep crisis of the world is. When most of us think about it spiritually, what I hear so frequently is, how can I find peace in the midst of all that is happening in the world? And this is actually the wrong question. The question should be, it's the right first part of the question. How can I find peace in the midst of what is happening in the world, not full stop, but so how can I find peace in the midst of what's going on in the world so that I can be a vehicle of change, a vehicle of awakening? That's what our peace is in service of. The peace is not, how can I peacefully enjoy my feast while the people around me starve? Give me that mantra that I can peacefully live in a mansion surrounded by homeless people. Those mantras don't exist because that's not a spiritual place to go. The mantra is, give me the peace of knowing that I don't need to hold with a death grip my attachment to being right, my attachment to how things should be, my attachment to anything, so that I can be a vessel for the divine will to flow. And that is how we need to serve. The spiritual response to the world today, and by the way, to the world on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, thousands of years ago, is not sit this one out. Is not find yourself a cave to meditate in while this war is going on. The Gita is a scripture that leaves us no doubt whatsoever that we are called upon to act, but act how? Because when most of us act, we act uselessly. I'll tell you a personal story. So I had been in India maybe a few months. And Pujya Swamiji says to me one day, he says, so I'm going to Delhi because outside of Delhi there's this slum. And there's a bunch of schools that are being run in that slum, 10, 11 schools. And the trust that's managing these schools, they don't have any money. And they've come to me and they've asked me whether we would adopt these schools. And so I'm going to see them. Would you like to come? If he had said to me, by the way, I'm packing up tomorrow and I'm going to go on a journey to hell, I would have said, yeah, sure, great. So you have to understand, those of you who don't know my full story, that it wasn't so much where we were going that was the call. It was that whatever was being offered to me was, yeah, absolutely, yes, wherever you're going, yes, let's go. So, but I also have always been deeply committed to children and was studying psychology to be of use to children. So we go and we spend the day seeing all of these schools, and they are in the worst of the worst slums. The stuff that up until that moment I had only seen in movies. Your epitome of a horrible slum. Hundreds and hundreds of people, in some cases thousands, living with no homes, no nothing, some makeshift tents here and there, people sleeping outside, goats, whatnot, women cooking outside on gas. And in the midst of these places were little shacks that kids came to every day. And we spent the day seeing all of these schools, and this one didn't have a roof, and this one didn't have a floor, and so we get in the car to head back into Delhi, and I'm sobbing. We get to the Delhi ashram, and it's dinner time, and he says, have dinner, and I'm sobbing. And he says, have dinner. And I say, how can I eat dinner? Oh my God, I can't eat dinner. Those kids are starving, and they don't have any place to eat, and how can I possibly eat dinner? And my guru looks at me, and he says, are your tears helping them? No, of course not, but oh my God, those kids. And he says to me, your tears are only helping you feel like a really compassionate person. They're not helping any of those kids. He said, if you really care and you really want to help those kids, eat something, sleep early, get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning and figure out how you're going to raise the money to adopt 10 new schools. And I share that story with you because when most of us go to serve, as I said, we serve uselessly. Either we are useless because we are so overcome with our own drama of the people we are serving and our separation from them, and so wrapped up in our own story about it. Or we are so wrapped up in being the one doing the service, whose name is going to go, how's the project going to get written, what's it going to be named, whose logo is going to be there, whatever it may be, that we are useless as far as vehicles for the divine will to flow. The peace we need is the peace that removes that from us. The spiritual connection that we need is a spiritual connection not to not serve, but to be able to be free of my drama, my identity, what I need in this story, and to be free of all of my preconceptions about what it's going to look like and how it's going to go. Because as you move through the world, as you serve, the world uses you. And we need to have that openness to allow the flow of the universe to flow through us. And that's what our spiritual practice gives us. And then, lastly, when we serve, when we do good deeds or good acts, the question is how we do them. Last night we were talking about seva and the difference between seva and volunteer work, and how volunteer work is me over here serving you over there. Seva is me being given the opportunity to serve myself, my capital S self, in you. And so when I act, I do good things, I do good acts, because that is who I am. People who hurt others because they are hurting. The example that I always give about this is those air conditioners back there can only give us cold air. It's what they have. Come back in a couple of months, and you're going to be really glad they keep those off, because it's cold. And if you sat there near the air conditioner, you might end up with a cold or cough, or at least certainly feeling very chilly. But it's not the air conditioner's fault. All it's got is cold air. It's great in July. It's even great in October. December, Jan, not skillful, not useful, but not its fault. People who are hurting others are giving hurt to the world because that's what they've got, that's what they're manufacturing inside. And so if I'm really going to be a doer of good in a spiritual way, it's not about what I do, it's about who I become. If I become an air conditioner, I can't help but to give cold air. If I become a heater, I can't help but to give hot air. If I become spiritually connected, if I become an embodiment of an experience of abundance, I cannot help but to overflow and share. If I become the embodiment of an experience of oneness, I can't help but to bend down and help you when you fall down, because you are me. There is no distinction. If while I'm walking, I trip and I fall and I hurt my right leg, my left leg is going to pick up the extra weight. It's what we call limping. But no one has to say to the left leg, oh, you know, wonderful, humanitarian, beautiful left leg, would you mind? It does it automatically because it understands the right leg is self. It's not expecting an award. It's not expecting a gold star. And here's what else happens. If next week I trip again, and the week after I trip again, that left leg never says, oh, forget it, like I'm done. Tell the right leg to pick up some extra weight, for God's sakes. Why always me? This isn't fair. I'm tired of this. Never. It'll limp and limp and limp and limp until it is no longer necessary to limp. And if the next week I get a stomach ache or a backache or a mosquito bite on my arm or whatever it may be, then a fever, my body's just going to keep responding. It's never going to say, all right, so we did the leg, we did the back, we did the stomach, but I draw the line at fever. Come back next week, maybe I'll do fever, but not today. Because it understands it's all self, and whatever is needed, that immune system is going to kick in and be there because it's self. And that's how we serve. That's how we do good. In the same way that you couldn't actually take your hand and hit your face hard enough to give yourself a black eye? But you couldn't do it. You could try. I mean, you could kind of, do a little bit of this, but there's something in the hand that stops it before it gives you a black eye. Because it's self. When we are spiritually connected, we are unable to harm, to cheat. In the same way that we're unable to give ourselves a black eye on purpose. I mean, it doesn't mean you don't walk into a door accidentally. We sometimes stumble all over ourselves and make mistakes. But not knowingly. Not consciously. Because we are aware the world is self. And so that's the way. That's the way we give. And then the good deeds become just the perfume of the goodness of who I am. There's a beautiful line in a poem by Khalil Gibran on giving. And he says that we should give the way that the flower gives its fragrance to the bottom of the shoe that has stepped on it. Take that in for a minute. Really, what does that look like in life? And who do I have to be? Who do I have to realize I am to be able to give like that? Not as a martyr. Not so I can post it on Facebook. Not so that that guy will feel badly and then come back and do something for me. Not so everyone watching thinks that I'm worthy of... But simply because it cannot do anything else. And that is when we are really living our Dharma and serving as our Dharma. And then that fragrance goes everywhere. So, yes.
How do we identify our Dharma and the purpose of our existence? And once we embrace our spirituality, right now each of us in this room are able to align our energies and we are able to understand you. But once we go back to our jungle of real life, how do we embrace our spirituality then?
Okay, first of all, this is real life. As long as in your mind, and I know you're just using it as an expression, but as long as in our mind that is real and what I experience here and on the banks of Ganga and in the Arati and in my meditation is not real, you're going to be lost. This is real. That is not. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have lots of duties to do there. You do. Doesn't mean you should stay here and not go back. You should go back. Fulfill your duties. But what you need to understand is that this is the real. That experience, that truth, that's the reality. That drama is the roles we are playing at this intersection of time and space. And we are called upon to play them well, to play them sincerely, to play them fully, so we do. But never think that this is somehow just like a vacation for your soul and that's the real life. This is real. When you feel the truth of who you are, that's real. And the way that you hold on to it when you go back is you make it real now. If something is just ooper say, it doesn't last. If it's just about remembering the words that I said, it'll never last. You may sit here and think, oh wow, kya baat hai, but it'll last maybe an hour. The only way to make it last is when this becomes your truth. That's what satsang means. Satsang does not mean listening to a good lecture. Satsang means in the presence of truth. And it's a truth that is transformative if we allow it in. And so the way to take it back home is to make sure that it's touching you deeply while you are here. In terms of knowing your dharma and your purpose. So first of all, we all have what we can call a collective purpose. All of our purpose is one, to wake up, to realize the truth of who we are. It doesn't matter your age, your culture, your religion, your socioeconomic status, your sexual orientation, nothing matters. If you are alive in a human body, the purpose of your birth is to wake up. And this isn't just me saying this. This is what the scriptures have told us. This is what the saints and the sages and the rishis have told us. The reason we get a human birth, the reason that that human birth is seen as the pinnacle of evolution, is because it's believed that humans are the only ones who have the ability to watch themselves, to be conscious of consciousness. So we began with a meditation today of merging into the consciousness of the breath. If we sat for a bit longer, the next step of that is, can you be in the consciousness of the one who is watching you be conscious, merged into the breath? There's a whole other layer to go. And then a whole other layer you just keep going. But it's believed that humans are the only ones who have the ability to do that. Your purpose is to wake up, to know who you are, to know the truth of who you are, to know the divinity of who you are. That's your purpose. That's your highest calling. But then, of course, we all have our individual duties and dharma and so many different words also that we talk about it. Our calling, our vocation, our this, whatever it may be. Here's the dilemma. The dilemma is that a lot of us, particularly those of us in the West or who are influenced by a lot of Western, more New Agey teachings, have been given this misconception that if it's your dharma, if it's your purpose, it's going to be super grand, it's going to be extraordinary, it's never going to be done before, it's going to be really romantic and glamorous, and everybody's going to just love you for doing it, and everything's going to go right for you the minute you start doing it, and it's just going to be like getting a speedboat to go down a river that's already running in your direction. And that's not the truth. And again, I go back to the Gita. It's just the easiest place to go back to for everything. You think, well, all right. When Lord Krishna stood there and told Arjuna, you stand up and you fight this war, there was no glamour in that. There was no fun in that. And what's interesting is, Lord Krishna didn't say to him in the beginning, and by the way, don't worry, you're going to win. Which is really important to realize. At one point, Arjuna says, but I could die. And Krishna says, yeah, you might. You might, but to die on the battlefield fulfilling your own dharma is infinitely better than living for God knows how many years but not fulfilling your dharma. So he's God, he knows what's going to happen, but he doesn't even say to Arjun, Dad, we got this one in the bag, don't worry. He doesn't even tell him that, because that's not even the point. It's not about the outcome. It's about it was his dharma to fight it. He didn't enjoy it even for a minute, during or after. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't romantic. People who knew him didn't say, oh my God, you're so great, this is wonderful. Thank God we have this war. Thank God we're losing our loved ones. And it's important to know that, because a lot of times we get in this weird, warped misconception that somehow this dharma is going to land in my lap and I'm going to know this wonderfully glamorous role I'm supposed to play for the world, and everybody's going to love me, and I'll be on the cover of magazines. And if I'm not, it means I haven't yet found my dharma. And there's lots of people who are prepared to take a lot of money from you and help you find it. But it's not there like that. Living our dharma is simply living the truth of who you are. And that's every minute and every moment. And so as we move through our lives, we've actually got lots of different dharmas and purposes. You've got a dharma as a son. You've got a dharma as a husband if you're married, as a father if you've got a child. You've got a dharma to Mother Earth, to tread lightly, to take care of her. You've got a dharma to your fellow humanity. You've got a dharma in response to what you've been given by the universe, whatever your skills, abilities are, to use them. To use your life in the service of the divine. There's a beautiful story of a saint who was bathing in a river. And he's bathing, and there's a scorpion drowning in the river. And he reaches out to pick up the scorpion to save him. And so he picks up the scorpion out of the water, and he is about to put him on the riverbank, and the scorpion stings him. And he goes, ow! And he flings his hand like that. And the scorpion falls back in the water. Again, he picks up the scorpion. And again, he goes to put him on the riverbank. And again, before he can get him there, the scorpion stings him, and he flings his hand in pain, and the scorpion falls in the water. And this drama goes on for several times. He keeps trying to save the scorpion keeps stinging him, he keeps flinging it back in the water. And there's a guy sitting on the riverbank watching it. And he says, Baba, chordo, forget it. Let him die, he's a scorpion, he's just going to keep stinging you. And the saint says, he stings me because it is his dharma as a scorpion to sting. I save him because it is my dharma to save. And if he doesn't leave his dharma, why should I leave mine? So it's not always fun, not always romantic, not always appreciated. And of course, the manifestation of the saint's dharma to save looks one way in a river with a scorpion, a completely different way when he gets out of the river. In the same way, don't necessarily look for there's going to be one thing. I just have to find it, and every moment until then is a wasted moment. The truth of who you are is love. The truth of who you are is divinity. If you are moving through the world, in all your duties, in all your roles, as love, with an awareness of your divinity, with trying the best that you can to see that divinity in others, because you're aware that that's not just who you are, that's who everyone is, then you're going to fulfill your dharma. You'll know what path to walk down. No gardener has to come over and tell the caterpillar when it's time to climb the tree and become a butterfly. Doesn't need somebody to come in and say, hey, it's your turn. He knows. How he knows, I have no idea. But I know, someday, one day he's crawling around, someday there's some sign, there's some signal, something. It says, climb the tree. And then it says, now go out on a branch. And then it says, now weave yourself into a cocoon and don't move while I liquefy you. And then it says, now burst out. And jump and fly. Now he's never jumped, he's never flown. Nobody's there to teach him. Nobody's there to say, now you are butterfly. Role change. But he jumps and he flies. You never hear of a butterfly that crawls back down the tree trunk because it doesn't believe it can fly. Right? Or the caterpillar is too scared to climb up. And I share that, and I love the teaching of that, because we all know that. And we understand intuitively that there is a wisdom in the universe that makes caterpillars know when to become butterflies, that makes an apple seed know that it's actually supposed to grow into a tree that gives apples and not pineapples. I mean, really, how does the seed know? I don't know, but it does. You don't need the gardener who planted the apple seed to stand there and apples, remember apples. There's the intelligence in the seed, it knows. Everything in nature has it. Choose anything. A dog chases a bird up to the top of a building. The bird flies off, the dog doesn't. Stops right there at the edge. It knows. Can't fly, I'm not a bird. Everything in nature has an intelligence. So do we. Listen to it. Connect with it. Move forward as that love, as that divinity, as that truth. And you'll know. You'll know what door to walk through. You'll know where to take a turn. It's the ego that just throws us off track. And so the more we can just keep coming back to the self, we know. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. And we'll see you tomorrow. If we didn't have a chance to get to your question tonight, and if you feel shy to ask it in public for any reason, you can get it to our beautiful Seva team, who will get it to me in writing. We'll take it in advance.